to your brain on air. The program will begin shortly. Enjoy.
استمعوا إلى عقلك على الهواء. سيبدأ البرنامج قريبا. استمتع.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Your Brain on Air. I am your host, Ollie Vogt Larson. And skin color, gender, sexuality, nah, I prefer to be prejudiced based on your excitement level for the next Avengers movie. Folks, welcome to the Tuesday broadcast. It's a beautiful one for you. We got December 16th, halfway. Can you believe it already? We're already halfway through the month. And I know, if you haven't taken care of your Christmas shopping, yeah, you should take care of it as soon as possible. Maybe next payday, that's your goal, okay? Let's set goals, people. Then we can be productive members of our society, our families, our communities, everything. That's, folks, this show is just designed to make you a better person. I'm just kidding. I'm not a guru. I don't know how to teach people to be better, folks. I'm here to make some fun, I'm here to laugh, and you're here to just join me through this romp that we call life and the new news cycle. That's what we do over here. So let's just stop dilly-dallying, there's too much to discuss, and let's just jump right into it, folks. We got Donald Trump versus BBC. No, not Big Black Cock. British Broadcasting Corporation as the president sues for millions. President Donald Trump, folks, has officially filed a $10 billion defamation lawsuit against the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC, lodging a case in federal court in Florida. The lawsuit centers on a segment of Trump's January 6, 2021 speech that the BBC aired in a 2024 Panorama documentary. Trump alleges that the BBC manipulated the footage by splicing together portions of his remarks, combining statements made nearly an hour apart, in a way that created a false impression that he was encouraging supporters to march on the U.S. Capitol and fight like hell. His legal filing claims that the edits omitted parts where he advocated peaceful protests and therefore defamed him and violated Florida's deceptive and unfair trade practices laws. I mean, does he have a case? I mean, I think so. Maybe a little bit of something, because admittedly, you watch the footage that these people show, that he shows as being like, hey, maybe this is defamatory. Kind of agree, especially if BBC wants to claim that they were trying to show it in a very not ahistoric, because that means anti-historic, but a very historic, like by the speech way. The way that they played it completely spliced it together to make it feel as though he sounded like Darth Vader. You know what I mean? When really his speech there, at least in the moments that he's defending himself, it really doesn't come across nearly as bad as they would want it to. So his legal filing claims that they're gonna go for, he's seeking $5 billion for defamation and $5 billion for unfair trade count, totaling $10 billion figure in the headline. The BBC has already acknowledged that the BBC edit was an error of judgment, quote unquote, and has apologized to Trump, but has firmly rejected the legal basis for the defamation claim, saying edits, while regrettable, don't rise to the level under the law. The broadcaster also noted that it will defend itself in court and denies wrongdoing. The editing controversy had already sparked significant internal consequences, including the resignation of top BBC executives, which we already talked about earlier, and prompted broader debates about editorial judgment and in the long-running public broadcaster. Legal experts note that the lawsuit raises several challenging legal questions. The U.S. defamation law, public figures like Trump must show that the alleged falsehoods were published, quote, with actual malice, meaning that the defendant knew the information was false or acted with reckless disregard. That's a high bar, especially with major news outlets defending the editorial process. Another wrinkle is that the Panorama documentary in question was not formally broadcast in the United States, which could complicate jurisdiction and impact arguments, although Trump's team notes U.S. viewers could access the content via streaming services. BBC, I guess I didn't know they had a streaming platform, but apparently they do. The lawsuit, I think that this is just like it's a part of his broader legal pattern of actions against people that he doesn't love, media organizations over the portrayals that he views them as defamatory. In recent years, he's filed or settled similar suits with American outlets, and this international case spotlights tensions over freedom of press, editorial standards, and political media coverage on both sides of the Atlantic. How the courts handled this high-stakes lawsuit could have ripple effects for media liability, and how broadcasters edit politically sensitive material in the future. Let's go ahead and let's just let this beautiful black lady from the BBC, I guess, defend themselves? I don't know.
President Trump has filed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against the BBC over an edit of his speech on the 6th of January 2021 in a Panorama documentary. Mr. Trump has accused the BBC of defamation and of violating a trade practices law according to court documents filed in Florida, and asked for $5 billion in damages on each of the claims. Last month, the BBC apologized to President Trump, but rejected his demands for compensation and disagreed there was any basis for his defamation claim. Here's our North America correspondent, Peter Bowes.
Donald Trump has gone through with his threat to sue the BBC. This is a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit seeking compensation for the US president sees as a deliberate attempt to misrepresent his message on January the 6th. The president is asking for a jury trial in Florida over his claim that the Panorama program intentionally, maliciously, and deceptively doctored the speech he made before his supporters forced their way into the US Capitol. 2 sections of his address were edited together, out of sequence. The BBC acknowledged that it gave the mistaken impression that Mr. Trump had made a direct call for violent action. The corporation apologized, but rejected Mr. Trump's initial demand for compensation. Hours before the court papers were officially filed, the president alerted the media from the Oval Office.
They actually put terrible words in my mouth having to do with January 6th that I didn't say.
I don't know why he has to word everything so goddamn funny. They actually put terrible words in my mouth. It's terrible.
Beautiful words that I said.
Jesus Christ. It's 5 words. He has 5 words that he can grab from.
Right?
Beautiful, big.
Words.
Terrible.
Patriotism and all of the good things that I said. They didn't say that, but they put terrible words.
Terrible words.
They actually have me speaking with words that I never said, and they got caught.
The lawsuit includes 1 count of defamation and 1 of violating Florida's trade practices law.
Well, damn.
Mr. Trump's legal team has asked for $5 billion in damages. The president's lawyers have argued that the BBC can be sued in Florida because the Panorama documentary was available to American audiences on its BritBox streaming service.
BritBox.
A spokesman said the goal of the lawsuit was to hold the BBC accountable over what Mr. Trump sees as its reckless election interference. The controversy over the Panorama programme led to the resignations of 2 senior BBC executives, its head of news, Deborah Turnus, and the Director General, Tim Davie.
They were
The corporation
out.
has not yet responded to the court filing. Peter Bowes, BBC News.
Well, let's now speak to David Banks, who's a media law consultant and journalist. Thank you for joining us on BBC News. So, what happens next in this case?
Well, I think it's the first thing will be whether the Florida court, on the basis of President Trump's papers filed, will decide they actually have jurisdiction. The BBC will very probably be arguing that they don't. And I think this hinges on who saw it in Florida, how many people does the Florida court feel that sufficient audience was there and sufficient damage was done there for the court to have jurisdiction over the case.
To have jurisdiction of the case, just talk us through some of those.
Floridians were damaged by this documentary, I promise you. They were hit hard. It is the worst thing to hit these people since Milton.
Points as to whether would have jurisdiction over this case.
Well, I think firstly they have to show that the BBC has sufficient presence there to be kind of actionable in Florida. Now, President Trump is arguing that the programme, although it wasn't available on iPlayer, it wasn't broadcast in Florida in the way that programmes are broadcast to people here in the UK. His lawyers are arguing that because it was available on BritBox, because some people could get it on VPN and some other streaming services, that was enough to make this a case that could be heard in a Florida court. Now, the BBC will have data on its audiences and who saw it, how many people saw it, and they might be arguing that not insufficient people actually saw the programme for this to be a case that a Florida court should really be hearing, and that insufficient damage was done there for this to be a case that the Florida court should be considering.
How long could this go on for?
Well, that really does depend on the BBC's will to fight. It's apparent that President Trump is willing to go the distance, and he has with several media organisations. He's launched some successful, unsuccessful lawsuits, and they take months and months, even years, to actually come to fruition, and all that costs money. And so the BBC, no doubt, has to think about whether this is a fight they want to engage in over that sort of length of time, which will be hugely expensive and hugely distracting as well.
Yes, because the BBC is a public corporation, so different from the other private media companies. Could that change how the BBC responds, do you think?
Well, absolutely. I think that a private company, their shareholders might have a view about, major shareholders might have a view about fighting very expensive legal battles, but they are more able to devote.
Well, the shareholders in this case are the citizens, and I don't assume that the British people are very happy with their money going to fight, the president.
Huge amounts of money to fighting legal actions. The BBC always has to think, I think it's unique, and it always has to think about its spending licence payers' money, and money that it would be far better spent on the programmes that it produces to broadcast. So it is in a different situation, and whether they want to engage in that. But they may well think this is a really important battle to be had about free speech and about the way in which politicians like President Trump relate to major broadcast organisations and the media generally.
Yes, a lot to look out for here. David Banks, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, folks. I mean, the BBC's in trouble. I'm hoping that they resolve it quick. I'm guessing that if you're a Brit citizen, you're hoping that it's resolved quick, because you don't want your money going to this shit. It's kind of stupid. I think we're going to take a break for an ad, actually. And if you're actually from the BBC, you might actually want to hear this one, because it'll probably help you out. You might want to tell the executives about it. I think it would be a win for all of us in that case. Folks, Brits, Americans, either. Are you tired of facing the consequences of your actions or creative decisions? Introducing Manip and Ulitative Law, the firm that believes justice is just a suggestion. Our team of highly ethical attorneys has a 99% success rate in getting you off the hook, whether it's white-collar misunderstandings, tax optimizations that somehow landed you in hot water, that little incident with an embezzlement, fraud, or borrowing company funds indefinitely, or just good old-fashioned perjury. We love a challenge. We'll twist the law into pretzels, bury the opposition in paperwork, intimidate witnesses, legally of course, and find loopholes so big you could drive a stolen Lamborghini through them. I promise you. Pricing, we work with a scale type of thing. The worse your crime, the higher our fee. Starting at just $50,000 for minor felonies. Major ones, name your price. We accept cash, offshore accounts, cryptocurrency, luxury watches, or favors. Clientele testimonies. They got me out of prison before I even went. Anonymous, obviously. I was facing 20 years. Now I'm facing a golf course in the Caymans. A satisfied client. Best investment since the Ponzi scheme. Bernie M. No relation. No, do not let the system grind you down. Let us grind for you. Call Manip and Ulitative Law at 1-800-NO-GUILT, because everyone deserves a second chance, or a third, or a 17th. Manip and Ulitative Law. It is not responsible for any federal investigations triggered by this advertisement. All rights reserved, void where prohibited, which is nowhere we operate. Let's jump into our second story, folks. I mean, there's a killer on the loose, and we gotta talk about it. I mean, it's crazy, the Brown University shooter. I mean, if you haven't heard about this. The deadly shooting, it was at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island on December 13th, 2025. It left 2 students dead and at least 9 others wounded when an unidentified gunman opened fire inside a classroom during an academic session. The attack immediately triggered a large-scale law enforcement response, including local police, state troopers, and the FBI agents around the area. As authorities worked to secure the campus, assist victims, and begin a manhunt for the shooter, as of Tuesday, December 16th, no suspect has been confirmed in custody, and the search continues into its 3rd and 4th day. With heightened security across campus and surrounding neighborhoods, initial hopes of a breakthrough were upended when officers detained a person of interest, quote-unquote, at a Rhode Island hotel on Sunday, only to release him later that night, determining that there was insufficient evidence connecting him to the shooting. This development left law enforcement without a clear suspect and prompted officials to focus on the investigation on new released video footage that shows a figure believed to be the shooter, a man roughly described as 5'8" with a stocky build, captured on a surveillance walking near the campus around the time of the attack. The FBI and Providence police have offered up a $50,000 reward for tips that lead to an arrest and conviction, appealing to the public for an assistance. Investigators are confronting real challenges in identifying the assailant, in part only because of the limited amount of low-quality footage that we've gotten from this, mostly capturing the suspect from behind. No definitive images of his face have been released. Officials say that the sparse evidence is slowing the progress, obviously, and adding to community anxiety. I mean, for some reason, these goddamn people, they just can't relax when there's a killer on the loose. It's like, stop being so anxious. It's just someone who's looking to stick copper pipe through your daughter's head. Meanwhile, local authorities stress that there is no current indication of an ongoing threat beyond the initial shooting. I love that. There's no current indication of ongoing threat but beyond a shooting that we do not have the shooter in custody for, even as they expand the neighborhood canvassing and review surveillance from the private cameras to gather new leads. Situation is drawing intense scrutiny and frustration from students, parents, and residents all over the community over communication and investigative coordination. Brown University has suspended classes and exams through the end of the semester, and Providence schools nearby are under increased security as the city works to reassure families and maintain public safety. The investigation remains active and complex, with officials warning that it may take time before the shooter is identified or located. ABC News, folks. Let's get a clip of that.
Also breaking news in the manhunt for the killer still on the loose tonight in the deadly mass shooting at Brown University. Just a short time ago, take a look at this. Authorities releasing these new images tonight of a person of interest dressed in black there, walking through a neighborhood, his face covered by a mask. At some points here,
he's got short arms.
His eyes are visible. And what we've now learned about that person of interest who had been in custody. Wick Johnson on the scene in Providence again tonight.
Tonight, the urgent manhunt is back on to find a suspect in the deadly
I love this. You're just watching a bunch of fucking idiots in FBI coats just like shuffling around bushes, kicking. They're in lines, kicking through the snow, just like, do you see a bullet casing? Do you see anything? Like, they just like absolute fucking morons. I'm sorry, the FBI in general, it's made up of humans, so it's not made up of the brightest bunch, but like ever since Kash Patel has joined, it's the leadership at the top, it's top down, the whole institution is just kind of a rot fixture.
Mass shooting at Brown University, still at large after more than 48 hours.
We want to see the individual that pulled the trigger on these young kids identified, apprehended, and brought to justice.
Moments ago, police releasing these new surveillance videos showing a person of interest in dark clothing walking in a residential area hours before the shooting Saturday afternoon, seen crossing the street, and this image showing him from the front.
We're asking the public for assistance to be able to identify this individual.
It follows it.
You know what I realize right now? That everybody, and nowadays, we complain that crime is really hard to get away with. We're like, it's hard. You can't. Back in the 80s and 90s, you could rob people, but nowadays they have cameras everywhere. Wear a mask. Ever since COVID, it's not that weird. And just wear a hat to cover up your hair. Mask and hair. Boom. You're done. Folks, I'm just going to be honest with you. The Wild West is still kind of a thing. You go out to, medium-sized towns or things like that, you can still kind of get away with shit. You can still kind of, if you want to be an outlaw, it's still possible. You know, pad out your clothes to change your build a little bit, you know, like cover up your face entirely. You know what I mean? This is what protesters are doing. This is what it's common knowledge. I'm sorry to say it, but crime, it's easy to get away with still. Buy shoes from like a thrift store out of town so that they cannot track the idea that you ever wore them, and only wear those for the crime and then throw them out afterward. It's like, people who just get caught doing crimes are real knuckleheads. You gotta, like, you think about that a lot when you watch these crime shows. You're like, God damn, I could get away with this easier than they could. I'm just being honest with you. The FBI is not nearly as skilled as they claim to be when it comes to a lot of this sort of stuff. It's still a little bit like, you could go out there and kill somebody, and it's like flip of a coin whether or not you'll get away with it. It's about a 50-50 shot. That's what most criminologists will tell you. That's what people who study this shit for a living will tell you, that it's like a 50-50 shot. Half of the murder cases in the United States are unsolved. That's a fact. And half of the new ones that come in every day are unsolved half the time. It's crazy.
The stunning turn in the investigation. A man previously detained, released overnight. The Rhode Island Attorney General telling ABC News the man was effectively cleared after analyzing the evidence. Do you believe people here should feel safe right now?
I do. I understand why they're...
I do. I understand that people would be frustrated that I'm not doing my job, and that I'm letting a man run about the community where he could have a car, and he could grab your daughter and throw her in the back, and he could run over your son and shoot your wife in the head and steal your newspaper, worst of all.
Is deep discomfort. However, we have a very safe community with
we have a safe
a
community.
lot of law enforcement resources at our disposal right now.
A lot of law enforcement resources. We have a lot of taxpayer money to throw all over the place while these idiots walk around with coffee mugs and donuts, and then they just go like, yeah, that fucking guy, he was like a little fat. I mean, he could be you, Bobby. And then Bobby goes like, fuck you, Bill. And then, like, they're just like, and then they just debate their biggest theories that they have. It's not very, scientific, I'm going to be honest with you. And then they watch forensic people that, like, sneeze on everything. And then they're like, that won't be an issue.
Reports of an active shooter coming just after 4 p.m. Saturday in the midst of final exams.
One shot in the back, one shot in the shoulder.
Students barricading themselves inside classrooms, hiding underneath desks. Law enforcement going room by room.
Promise police! Hands!
Police say the gunman entered the Barris and Holly Engineering Building and opened fire on the first floor. Joseph Adura was inside a lecture hall leading a study group of about 60 students when he says the shooter walked in, his face almost completely covered, and looked him in the eye.
I saw, like, something bulging from his chest, so maybe, like, some type of ammo or bulletproof vest.
Oduro guiding students to take cover behind a desk. Police say the gunman fired more than 40 rounds from a 9mm handgun inside that lecture hall before fleeing the scene. 2 students killed, 9 others injured.
What did you see as you were walking out? I think, honestly, it felt like a video game site. Like, it was just like something I've never really seen before. Students just agonizing in pain.
Among those killed, Muhammad Aziz Umarzakov from Uzbekistan. His family writing on GoFundMe, he was incredibly kind, funny, and smart. Our family is incredibly devastated by the
GoFundMe. So wait a minute, their kid dies and they think it's a time to make a check?
This loss. And Ella Cook, a sophomore from Alabama, remembered as a bright light.
Her loss is really, really a big hit for the Brown community. It's going to be a long period of healing and pain going forward.
Sucks to be a Brown University student because you have to say, I'm a part of the Brown community.
To start next semester.
And again, David, just moments ago, authorities releasing these new surveillance images of a person of interest. They want the public to study them closely. The FBI is now offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction. David, Wade Johnson, right there.
I love that. I love that about the FBI. They're like, it's 4 pixels. Get a good look at his face, people. Get a good look and get back to us. Let's hope, everybody. Collective prayer. And then, I don't know, they like put prayer back in schools or something. MAGA. Folks, let's jump into the rapid fire section of today's headlines. There's a lot of shit you got to hear about to keep your media diet healthy, and I'm going to tell you about it. Folks, there's too much shit. There was a major Australian terror attack, Bondi Beach as we know. A mass shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah celebration left at least 15 people dead and dozens injured. Authorities have classified the attack as a terrorism inspired by the Islamic State. One suspect was killed and another was critically injured and arrested. The incident is being widely condemned as the investigation continues. I mean, one tied to the Islamic State. Does that mean it was a Muslim or someone who was sympathetic to the Muslims? What does it mean? I don't know. It's curious. Whatever it means, it has resulted in a call for stricter gun laws. In our second headline, in the wake of the Bondi Beach massacre, Australia's government has vowed to tighten gun laws, including restrictions on firearm ownership and a national register. You guys didn't already have that? As the nation mourns the victims and grapples with national security concerns. I mean, I suspected that they already did it. Hero praised after the Bondi shooting also. 43-year-old Sydney man Ahmed Al-Ahmed is being celebrated as a national hero for disarming one of the gunmen during the Bondi Beach shooting. His actions may have saved many lives. The leaders, including the Australia's Prime Minister, have publicly honored his bravery by visiting the man in the hospital. Good for him. That's hospital. What the fuck? It's awesome. It's great. I'm happy for him. Global health declaration at the United Nations, though. The world leaders adopted a historic declaration on non-communicable diseases and mental health, aiming to reduce tobacco use, expand hypertension control, and improve access to care by 2030. This represents one of the most ambitious coordinated global health commitments to date. Local U.S. civic news and legal moves. Various U.S. local issues are making headlines, including disputes over city symbols like a rainbow sidewalk. Lawsuits are being moved into new jurisdictions and broader capital trends in civic governance. Fun there, right? There's also being controversy currently over Trump remarks on Rob Reiner. I mean, this is shaking the Jewish community, as he was a well-known Jew, but also the left community, like people on the left, people that thought for some reason that Rob Reiner, because he made a couple good movies and because he clearly had such a good household that he raised a real gem of a kid that, wound up taking his life. Clearly he should have focused less on the president and maybe more on his own household. That's just my personal point of view. But they went ahead and President Trump, he's facing backlash after controversial remarks regarding the death of the filmmaker, and his wife comments may have criticized the have labeled insensitive and decisive. They were largely about his supposed Trump derangement syndrome, which admittedly he kind of had a little bit, not necessarily. He was more so just terrified of the right in general. He was a left-leaning person his entire life. And, but yes, he was a fervent anti-Trump person, like, all his life, and he was maybe a little too far left on certain issues, or at least, like, one of those people at a party that's not willing to call out the far left issues, where it's like, I don't know, transing kids doesn't sound like a great, that sounds like a test too far, you know what I mean? International security concerns after the Australia attack. Jewish groups in the United States and elsewhere are urging heightened event security following the Bondi Beach terror attack, reflecting the broader concerns about anti-Semitism and safety in religious communities globally. Oh my goodness. India's strategic partnerships and infrastructure news. In global development news, India's National Transport Agency launched its first wildlife safe highway, and major international loans from Asian Development Bank were signed into fund infrastructure and renewable projects, underscoring economic and environmental priorities. Fun, right? And then finally, we have this, the Global Health Monitoring Challenges. Global World Health Organization, WHO, the WHO, not the WHO as in the one that your grandma got trampled going to see. The one that like tells everybody to be healthy. And partner nations are pushing forward global health initiatives, including new frameworks that address major diseases and warning of ongoing challenges like drug resistance and uneven programs toward universal healthcare coverage. I mean, yeah. That's the goal, isn't it, eventually? I mean, whatever. That is. I mean, any decent person would say that. Folks, let's jump into our final story that we're going to cover. It is a doozy. Who are the 4 people suspected of plotting a New Year's Eve bombing? I mean, folks, I plan to go to a New Year's Eve party. I don't want there to be any bombings. Do you want there to be any bombings? I don't think so. I want to be singing Auld Lang Syne, and I want to, cry. I want to get emotional. I want to drink champagne, or whatever you drink, the bubbly shit. I want to drink Prosecco. I want to drink white wine that has bubbles in it. But apparently, federal authorities have announced this week that 4 individuals have been arrested in Southern California in connection with a foiled plot to carry out a coordinated bombing on New Year's Eve. That would have ruined it. I mean, keep an eye out, everybody, just to make sure that nothing does happen. Law enforcement officials, including FBI and U.S. Department of Justice, says the members were part of a radical anti-government extremist group planning to detonate improvised explosive devices, IEDs, across multiple locations in Los Angeles in the area. On December 31st of this year, their plan was allegedly designed to conceal explosions among New Year's fireworks, to target facilities associated with major companies as well as immigration and customs enforcement, ICE agents, and vehicles. So clearly this leans left already, at least, and it's not ideal. We don't want hate coming from either side, but still, I mean, come on, targeting ICE with terrorists, bombings, things like that is never the solution, people. The 4 people identified by authorities are Audrey Eileen Carroll, 30, Zachary Aaron Page, 32, Dante Gaffield, 24, and Tina Lai, 41, all reportedly from the Los Angeles area. Carroll is described as charging documents as the author of the detailed operational plan outlining the plot, which prosecutors dubbed Operation Midnight Sun. The 4 were charged with the conspiracy and possession of unregulated destructive devices under federal law. According to the officials, the suspects were apprehended last week in Lucerne Valley in the Mojave Desert east of Los Angeles, where they were preparing and testing bomb-making materials ahead of the planned attacks. Law enforcement found components such as PVC pipes, chemical precursors like potassium nitrate and sulfur, and other materials used in making explosives at the desert campsite. The FBI intervened before any functional bombs were completed. The 4 were reported to have been affiliated with an offshoot group identified as the Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF, a fringe organization described by authorities as a far-left, anti-capitalist, anti-government, and supportive of pro-Palestinian causes group. Prosecutors say that the group communicated about the plot in encrypted chats and had selected 5 planned targeted sites for simultaneous detonations. In addition to 4 arrests in California, a 5th individual is believed to be linked to the same extremist network, was arrested in New Orleans in connection with planning a separate attack. Officials say the broader effort helped them dismantle what could have been a highly disruptive and destructive series of attacks just before the major holiday. I mean, just because they foiled these couple kids over here, don't think that they caught everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I'd say if you live in a metro area, be extra cautious coming up on any major holidays. All right, let's just jump into this clip that we have from NBCLA.
We're following more breaking news. The people accused of planning a series of bombings across Southern California appeared in court this afternoon. The FBI says the 4 suspects are members of an extremist group, and they were planning to carry out the attacks on New Year's Eve. NBC4's Camilla Rambaldi is live in downtown LA with more of what we learned during today's hearing. Camilla.
Hi, Annabelle. 4 arrests in this case, and those 4 people are expected to face a federal judge this afternoon. That is what we are still standing by for at this hour. Now, federal officials telling us this morning that they believe that they have arrested everyone in connection to this alleged terror plot, and that they say that the FBI Joint Task Force moved quickly to disrupt it. The Department of Justice and the FBI announced today the arrests of 4 people they say were plotting to set off bombs in the Los Angeles area on New Year's Eve. Federal officials say they were members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front,
a far-left, anti-government, domestic terror cell.
Federal officials say search warrants were conducted at several locations across the nation and in Southern California. Law enforcement sources tell NBC4 Investigates searches in Glendale, South LA, and Torrance are connected to the case. NBC4 Investigates has learned one of the locations included this home in Glendale. A federal complaint states, quote, the plan contemplated planting backpacks with IEDs or improvised explosive devices at 5 locations across Southern California, targeting U.S. companies.
Thankfully, that plot has now been foiled. These bombs were to blow up at the same time on midnight this New Year's Eve.
Authorities did not release details of the locations or the names of the companies. First Assistant United States Attorney Bill Asaley says one of the leaders of the organization had allegedly created a detailed bombing plot.
Carol and her co-defendant, Zachary Page, led the effort to obtain and build the bombs and to recruit others to join in their plot. Carol also made clear her desires. She said, quote, what we are doing will be considered a terrorist act.
Together we have prevented a potential tragedy and reaffirmed our shared commitment to safeguarding our communities.
Federal officials shared this surveillance video today of a remote site in the Mojave Desert where they say the group attempted to construct and test bombs.
They had everything they needed to make an operational bomb at that location. We learned that the alleged co-conspirators had recently started acquiring precursor chemicals and other items necessary to accomplish this task.
A federal complaint states the FBI arrested all 4 last Friday before they were able to build the devices. And at last check, we just learned that 2 of the people arrested are now in court, and all 4 people arrested are facing charges of conspiracy and possession of an unregistered destructive device. Federal officials also said that they intend to file additional charges in the coming weeks as they finish reviewing evidence in this case. For now, we're live in downtown LA. Camilla.
I mean, there you go. Be careful if you plan on going out drinking, if you plan on going out celebrating this New Year's, be extra cautious. There's a lot of nuts out there looking to make the first year of Trump's presidency go out with a bang. And that's not exciting or fun. That's not exciting or fun, folks. But you know what is exciting or fun? This show, and I'm glad that you stayed tuned. I'm glad that you tuned in. I'm glad that you were here for today's episode. I appreciated your view. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you plan to join us Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We got more episodes coming out for you. You know what I mean? That's how it be. That's how it do. I don't know what else to say about that. You know, this has been your Brain on Air with Ollie Vogt Larson. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And bye-bye.